Greetings, YouTube. Leelah Alcorn was 17. She was a trans woman living in an abusive household, told on a regular basis that she wasn't a trans woman. Her family sent her to see pastors that belittled her, made fun of her, shamed her, all in an attempt to convince her that she was not what she knew the truth to be, a woman. Leelah knew at age 4 that she wasn't a boy. At 14, she discovered the idea of transgender, and she was liberated. She cried in joy, finally happy that there was someone out there that understood this, even to a small extent. She now had a term. She now had an identity. At 16, she asked to begin her transition, her gender realignment process. Her family denied it, and again sent her to pastors, therapists that all told her to be ashamed of her decision and her thinking. All told her that she was actually a boy, and if she would just move past this phase, she would, be okay. Except she wasn't okay, and it didn't get better. It just kept getting worse. And at 17, Leelah couldn't take it anymore. And she wrote a suicide note, posted it to her Facebook, or Tumblr, I believe. Tumblr as well. Or it could have been Tumblr, I can't remember. I know her mother's made comments on Facebook. And then she stepped off the curb in front of a semi-trailer, ending her life. The narrative being put forth by her family, and at least one news source, is that a teen boy was accidentally killed by a tractor trailer. The reality is a teen girl used a tractor trailer to commit suicide because of the deeply offensive and toxic home life she had, where she could never, ever be accepted for who she was. Her parents were complete and utter failures. When you're a parent, you have one job. Love your kid. That's job one, folks. Love your kid. And her parents didn't. Because if her parents had loved her, they would have accepted her. Now, I have read people saying that if she had just survived for a little bit longer, she would have been okay. But the problem is that the longer and longer you wait during puberty to begin your transition, the more difficult and less smooth it will go when you're a trans woman. So if Leelah could have begun at 14, that would have been the best of all possible worlds. 16, better. 17, not as good. And after that, it gets more and more difficult as the masculine hormones, the testosterone and such, is flooding through her system, making changes to her biological system. She knew the clock was running out. She knew that her family wasn't ever going to support her or accept her. I feel a great deal of sympathy and empathy and compassion for that truck driver. That truck driver is utterly blameless. He had nothing to do with this, and he has to live with the fact that the vehicle he was driving killed someone. I have a friend that had that happen to her when a child ran into the street. There was absolutely nothing she could do, and she was never held responsible for that death. Because she was driving that vehicle, she killed a 9-year-old. And she has never been able to move past that in some level. So this truck driver is going to have to deal with this, and I pray that he gets the therapy and support that he deserves. And there are those who've already come forward and said, well, it was selfish of her to use a truck, to involve someone else's in the process. And there was a time when I would have agreed you. And that time was recently. When Robin Williams committed suicide, my first thought was, you selfish bastard. And I was wrong to say that. I was wrong to think it. And if I could, I'd apologize to Mr. Williams. And I'm someone that has depression. I'm someone who's been suicidal. We don't hold someone responsible when they have a heart attack and die. We don't hold someone responsible when one of their organs gives out. When something is biologically wrong with most people, no one says anything. They don't blame the person. Robin Williams suffered from depression, and Leelah Alcorn suffered from depression. Hers may not have been biological, but it was just as much of a mental illness. So I can't blame her for what happened. I can, however, blame the adults in her life, her family and the pastors that she went to speak to. All of them are morally reprehensible. They are failures. They are unethical. They didn't do their job as parents or adults. Leelah didn't have anyone to help her, and now she's dead. Sadly, if she'd even made it into adulthood, the reality for trans women in the world is bleak. I'm going to quote something here. This is from a Slate article. In any other population, attempted suicide as frequently as trans people, the government would declare it a public health crisis. According to a new study by the Williams Institute and the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, 46% of trans men and 42% of trans women in the United States have attempted suicide. 42%. That's far higher than the 4.6% national average and more than double the 10 to 20% of the gay and lesbian people who report a suicide attempt. The numbers only get bleaker from there, revealing that trans people also experience homelessness, domestic violence, mental illness, sexual abuse, and employment discrimination at vastly higher levels than the general population. And all of this is because society refuses to accept trans people for what they are. People. Society wants them to be something else. They want them to conform to certain preconceived ideas. They want to look at them and say, you have to be this thing or that thing, and if you dare to say, no, I am not that thing, we will punish you. We will beat you down. Sometimes physically. Often emotionally, spiritually. We will strip you of your homes, of your livelihoods. We'll turn a blind eye when people beat you or rape you. Because it's easier for us. It's more convenient for us if we just ignore those things. And this is what happens when you ignore those things. A 17-year-old is dead because the world wouldn't accept her because her family failed her. I don't have a happy ending to this video. I don't know how to wrap this up.